Story 1. The Shadow People. The first and only time I ever saw them was hopefully the last. I was at this place we call Lost City. It was an old oil refinery. It had been abandoned for 20 plus years. They'd just let nature and the woods take over. There was a large concrete structure, along with some iron. The lower part is filled with water most of the year. We would go out there and just hang out when I was in high school. It was the spot in our town. I'm from a small county. There's not much for us kids to do. 2 of my friends were out there, hanging out one weekend. The moon lit up all around my car, and we were just sitting there and BSing, hoping someone else would show up to entertain us. As we sat there talking about the next party or whatever, my buddy Jess said, "Hush." He said he heard someone talking, so we shut up and listened. We didn't hear anything. After a few minutes, we went back to BSing, and then we all heard it. We decided it must be someone trying to prank us, so we got out of the car and started yelling and cussing at them, letting them know that we knew they were out there trying to scare us. But the sound didn't stop. We still thought it was someone trying to scare us, not something. It wasn't exactly talking, like articulating words. It was more like mumbling and hissing. The sound wasn't quite human. We started towards the wood line with my tire tool and a couple sticks for protection. We got about 50 feet away when Matt said stop. We did, and he pointed at the spot where he said he saw someone. We looked for a few minutes, and finally we could make out something moving in the moonlight. Jess told me to go back and turn the headlights on in the car. I did, and when the lights hit the woods, we saw nothing but trees, but the sound stopped. At that point, we were less than certain that it was somebody that we knew, and we started to get a little spooked. At this point, we decided to go on and get back in the car. I started to turn the car around, and when I did, the sound started up again, and we could see shadows moving around the woodline and in the grass. They looked like people, but only the dark outline of them. The sound was no louder than the first time we heard it, but the shadows had us terrified. We were kind of panicky at this point. I got the car turned around in a clearing and got us back down that dirt road. While I was turning, my lights hit one of the figures, and it disappeared the instant my lights touched it. When my lights left that spot, it appeared again. None of us have ever went back, and we've not really talked about that night ever again. We only told a few close friends and family what we saw. I've heard stories from other people as well. People who've claimed they've encountered the shadow people late at night in the field, just at the edge of the tree line. I still get chills when I think about them and what they looked like. Story 2. Cornish Ghosts. Several years ago, I was employed by a company in Cornwall, UK. I cleaned holiday cottages in a fishing village. One of the buildings was a very old cottage with an immediate frontage to the sea. It was originally one house, but it had been split into 2. As I was cleaning one day, I went out onto the patio to clean out the toaster. It was full of crumbs. It was broad daylight. It was a nice, sunny, beautiful day. And all of a sudden, I felt strange. I felt as if someone was pouring a bucket of cold water over my head in very slow motion. I could hear this noise, like an untuned radio, but also like lots of voices merged together. As I stood there, the scene appeared. There were people in Victorian dress, and they stood about the patio. They seemed to be dressed rather somberly, and they were talking in small groups. I couldn't tell what they were saying, as all the sound was merged together. Some of them were holding wine glasses in their hand. There was a woman in a black dress and bonnet, shouting at a small boy who sat playing on the patio. She was crying, and she looked very distressed. I was watching the scene, but I knew I wasn't part of the scene. They didn't see me. It was like I was watching a movie. I checked myself as I couldn't believe what was happening. I tried to pull away from the scene and managed to get indoors. When I got in, I felt so sick and dizzy. I had to lean over the sink and splash cold water on my face. I really thought I was going mad. I carried on with the cleaning, but I really felt weak and wobbly. About 5 minutes later, the voices came back. I was cleaning the staircase. I started feeling cold again. At that point, I just locked the door and left. I drove home, but I don't know how. I was shaking like a leaf. A couple weeks later, I spoke to the lady who ran the business, and I asked her if anybody had ever experienced anything there. She just laughed and said that it's rumored to be haunted by the locals. She told me there was an unchristened baby buried in the garden, and that there was a memorial stone on the back of the house. I went to have a look, and there it was. Apparently a sea captain had buried his baby there, around 1798. I don't know if it was the wake of the baby I witnessed, but I did see something. Story 3. Our haunted house. We moved into our current house about 6 years ago, and at first we never really had anything paranormal happen. Years passed with nothing, and then one day I woke up to go to the bathroom, and I wanted to check on my little brother, whose room was down the hall beside the bathroom. When I went into his room, I saw a tall figure, bathed in a bluish-white light, standing next to his bed looking down at him. I assumed it was my mom, since she checks on us during the night. But when I left my little brother's room, I saw my mom laying in her bed. My mom noticed me and said, "Hey, were you just in your brother's room?" And I said yes, and I asked her if she had been in there too. She said no, but that she had saw something walk into the room before me. I just went back to bed and thought nothing of it. Then a few months later, my stepdad took a job in Nebraska, and he moved there. He took my bed and left me an air mattress. I was sleeping on it, facing my door one night, when I woke up to find my light on. I thought this was very strange, and I turned it off. And then I saw a bright white figure dash into the bathroom. I got scared. I closed my door. I woke up later to find my light on again, and electronics in my brother's room going off. My mom says that when she is downstairs, she'll hear walking upstairs when no one else is home. Honestly though, I kind of like our ghost. He never does anything scary or harmful. I think sometimes he worries about us, because sometimes Mom says that when us kids are gone overnight, she'll hear pacing in our rooms. We also have a ghost in our basement, and it sometimes is scary. The first time I was home alone, I was watching TV in the basement. I was sitting on the floor with my left arm resting on the couch. All of a sudden, I felt the strong urge to turn around, like someone was watching me. I turned my head, and about 6 inches to my right, there was a pair of legs, clothed in jeans and cowboy boots. I quickly just turned around and resumed watching TV. A few months after that, I was on the computer in our basement, and I just so happened to look towards the stairs. And right behind our water heater, I see a child's face peeking around as if to play peekaboo with me. It disappeared right away when I looked at it. I've seen this child several times. Once upstairs in our living room, when I saw it dart across our kitchen. This child is little, maybe 2 or 3 years old. Mom has also seen the little girl on occasion. So far, I'm the only one who's seen the man in the cowboy boots. Story 4. What was that? I don't even really know what to call this. When I was younger, much younger, between the ages of 4 and 10, I occasionally saw things, ghosts maybe. Until I was 4, we lived in a house with my grandparents. Shortly thereafter, we moved out and rented a house. Around the time my brother was born is when I started seeing things. The first figure I started seeing was tall. He almost took up the whole wall. He was so big. He had a long pointy nose and horns that curved down to his face. But he was dressed like a man, wearing a suit. I started calling him the monster on my wall. I stopped seeing him when we eventually moved out of that house. The second thing I saw was one of my parents, and it frightened me. Like it was a doppelganger of either my mom or my dad, kneeling at my doorway. I would never see these two figures together, one or the other. One night it would be my mother, the next night it would be my father. My brother never saw any of these. I'm an adult now, moved out, and it still happens occasionally. I'll see one or the other kneeling at my door. But I'm glad it's not every single night like it was in my childhood. I don't see that horned man anymore. I haven't seen him since we moved out of the rented house. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the stories. If you did, give me a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. Bye.